Thank you for joining me today. We usually view religion and science as opposites. Hinduism, however, we find is a religion with a scientific spirit. Now, calling a religion scientific is sure to raise eyebrows. Religion, by definition, is one that requires faith, whereas science is about logic. Then why do I consider Hinduism to be endowed with a scientific spirit? We know that ancient Hindus were scientifically more advanced than the rest of the world. They invented and discovered many things for which there is very clear evidence and which was way ahead of any other society, any other civilization in the world. Sushruta brought in the practice of plastic surgery more than 3000 years back. Modern science discovered it just 200 years back. Ancient Hindus gave the world the base 10 numerals that we use till day. And trigonometry, ancient Hindus gave trigonometry to the world. Aryabhata's values of sine, match today's modern values that we use today in trigonometry. In astronomy, Hindus were way ahead. When every other civilization thought that the earth was flat, ancient Hindus knew that the earth was spherical. It's written in the Vedas, the oldest religious text, that the earth was spherical. We were also the first to realize that the earth is moving and it is rotating around the sun rather than everything else rotating around the earth. For the Western world to discover this, it took another 1000 years until Copernicus brought this theory that probably earth is moving and the sun is probably in the center. We can keep listing such ancient Hindu advancements and achievements in science across arithmetic, algebra, medicine, geometry, architecture, astronomy, metallurgy, and many more. But this is not the reason why I consider Hinduism to be the religion with a scientific temperament. Science is not about inventions and discoveries. Because inventions and discoveries can happen through accident, through serendipity. There are hundreds of thousands of scientists in today's world, but only a small set of them actually invent or discover something significant. The majority of scientists don't really invent something path-breaking or even significant and or discover anything like that. But then those who don't discover or invent anything are still called scientists. That's because science is not about inventions or discoveries, it is about a mindset, it is about an approach. It is a mindset of accepting ignorance, inquiry to gain knowledge, consistent use of logic to arrive at observations, evaluate observations and arrive at inferences, readiness to logically discuss and debate different theories and viewpoints, and a culture for such inferences and observations to be discarded when you have better observations and better inferences. That is science, not inventions and discoveries. Many of us think that science is also the absolute truth. Science is rarely, I could probably even say never, the absolute truth. Science is about creating theories that can be practically and usefully applied. Science is about utility. This does not mean that the theory that science is putting forth is the absolute truth. Take Newton's laws. We consider that to be the absolute truth. At least people who are not serious scientists, we consider that to be the absolute truth. It is taught in schools and colleges. But a true scientist whose bread and butter is science, they know that it's not the absolute truth, because while it is useful in explaining a lot of physical phenomena, it does not apply everywhere. Newtonian physics does not hold good at the quantum level, which is the extremely small or extremely large levels. So Newtonian physics is not the absolute truth, but still it is science, because it is valuable and useful. That's what makes up science. And Hinduism also works in a similar way. We have seen in an earlier discussion that the Hindus' central religious text is called the Vedas. Veda means knowledge. That is the religious text which is supposed to explain God. Contrast this with other religions where the main book or the scripture is just called the book or recitation or law. This simple semantic helps us understand the difference in approach of Hinduism. Hinduism approaches God as knowledge, not as a recitation or not as a superpower that has given us some instructions to follow. Hinduism, like science, is not shy of accepting its ignorance. Every other religion tells us that that religion is able to know God and explain God. Hinduism tells us that it does not know God. It is the only religion which says, hey, I don't know God, I have no idea about what this God is. In fact, it believes that God cannot be known, and conversely, anything that can be known is not God. Interesting, right? It's almost like a mathematical theorem. Almost everything that you see in Hinduism will be extremely logical. And it uses this theorem of anything that can be known is not God in the search or seeking of God. How? It uses an approach of elimination. It's called the neti approach. Neti is a short form for na iti. Not this, not this. Neti, just repeated, same word repeated twice. Not this, not this. It's a matter of elimination. So instead of trying to find God, search for God and saying, hey, this is what God is, it uses the strategy of elimination to discard everything that is not God, so that whatever is left out, that is the God that they are searching for. This kind of readiness to accept ignorance and use that ignorance as a starting point for gaining knowledge cannot be found in any other dogma or religion. Hinduism is also, like science, about inquiry. You will find that most Hindu scriptures are not sermons. It is not about instruction. It's not a set of laws. Okay, the Hindu scriptures, they are not speeches. They are, the majority of them are a series of questions and answers. Anything that deals with God is a series of questions and answers. And it is not just one question to which an answer is given and done, but a series of sub-questions and cross-questions which challenge those answers, to which even further answers are given. Be it the most famous of Hindu scriptures, probably the Bhagavad Gita, or even more esoteric Upanishads, or even commentaries and instruction booklets by the top religious gurus like the Upadesha Sahasri of Adi Shankara. The format is usually a question and answer and a lot of cross questions challenging the initial answers. This shows the importance that Hinduism gives to inquiry. instead of blind acceptance of answers that come from an authority. Hinduism's approach to knowledge is also, like science, based on logic. Reason is praised as the only refuge to gain knowledge. Reason, not faith. Reason is praised as the only refuge to gain knowledge and thereby attain God. Adi Shankara wrote an entire treatise calling reason as the most precious gem with which one can attain God or understand God. Nowhere is blind faith promoted in Hinduism. Oh, this is what is said, just follow it, that's all. No, nowhere is blind faith promoted. Even though in today's world you will find orthodox people trying to push Hinduism into a corner of blind faith, when you start reading the scriptures, when you start reading the actual texts, the Vedas, you will find that none of it promotes blind faith. Everything promotes inquiry. You will find scriptures to be rife with logic and syllogisms as a rule. In fact, in religious commentaries by the main religious gurus, be it Adi Shankara or Ramanuja or Madhva, it will read like a text full of syllogisms. And Hinduism has a very strong history of structured logic. Logic was called Nyaya. Nyaya in general parlance in Sanskrit usually also means justice. Whether it is religion or any other field of activity, logic had to be sound. If the logic was not sound, the theory had to be discarded. Just like we do or we expect with science. Similarly, in Hindu culture, including the religious culture, when someone comes up, some intellectual, someone comes up with a new theory or a viewpoint, the way to accept or discard it is through peer review and debate, similar to what we do in modern journals. Just like the process used in modern science, the author or the proponent of a theory defends the theory against the objections and questions of experts in that area. In PhD we call it, PhD and even post-graduation we call it defense of a thesis. That's exactly what was done in Hinduism. And if the new theory shows itself to be superior to an existing theory in explaining the world or explaining God or explaining any subject better than the existing theories, then the existing schools would abandon their perspective and adopt the new theory. This is how over millennia Hindu religious theory has evolved. Be it the debate between Yajnavalkya and Gargi, or between Adi Shankara or Mandana Mishra, the tradition has always been for any opponent to open up their theory, to critique, defend their theory logically, and if they are successful through open debates with other experts, establish the validity of their theory. It's all of this, a readiness to accept ignorance, a proclivity to deeper inquiry instead of just following instructions, an unwavering focus and dedication to logic, and accepting that logic is the only way to knowledge, and being ready to objectively discuss, critique, and accept new theories without blindly discarding them as blasphemy. That makes Hinduism a religion with a scientific spirit. Until we meet again, thank you.